Competitions in parkour are a touchy subject, yet rapidly increasing in popularity. You have one half of the community that think they are brilliant and they are a central part of the modern day parkour culture. Then you've got the other half of the community that think they are toxic, unnatural, and go against proper parkour teachings. And I myself once despised parkour competitions, but not anymore. So in this video, you're going to find out why parkour competitions actually work. So before we get on to the main points about parkour competitions, here's a little overview of me and my experience with competitions in general. From the age of 9, 10, I got into athletics and excelled at 100 meter sprint, 200 meter sprint, long jump, and eventually triple jump. I was springy and naturally very competitive, so of course I was pushed towards competitions. Initially I found it fun, but eventually, after every weekend spent traveling here, there and everywhere for a competition, and my evenings and afternoons after school spent training and constantly thinking about how many seconds to shave off on a sprint and how many meters or centimeters I want to improve on a jump, it all got repetitive, boring, and I just fell out of love with competitions. So when I started parkour, because there was no forced competitiveness or competitions in my local area, I enjoyed that more because it was chill. I could train at my own pace, at my own speed, focus on whatever I wanted to do. So then I start seeing parkour competitions pop up, or ones that have been around for a while that I just wasn't aware of. And I started hating these for two main reasons. Number one, quite selfishly, I knew I would never be as good as the top parkour athletes. And number two, it reminded me of how much I hated the competing part of athletics. Slowly but surely, I started actually researching these parkour competitions. I started watching behind the scenes videos, watching all the YouTube content about them. And eventually I realized that these were actually a very good thing and completely different from what I had experienced through athletics. And of course, in the last year, I've attended a couple of parkour competitions and even hosted one myself. Now, the main reason people are against parkour competitions are because they are toxic and go against the traditional parkour teachings. The toxicity seems to stem from their experience with other sports such as athletics, football, rugby, hockey, where almost right from the start there is an expectancy to compete. And the traditional parkour teachings tell you to be strong, to be useful, to focus on your own goals, and to move in your own unique and creative way. And these viewpoints have been handed down from the old guard to the next generation of freerunners. However, they don't seem to have reached the current new generation yet, which is a very good thing in my opinion. So now let's look at the reasons for parkour competitions. And just as a quick disclaimer, these are all my opinion on why competitions work. I have bounced these ideas off a few other freerunners that I know. Some have agreed with all of them, some have agreed with a couple of my points, but none of them have disagreed with all of them. So yeah, just be aware these are my opinion, it's not scientific fact. And if you want to take notes, then the following topics will be community, inclusivity, replacement, and choice. So first of all, let's look at this toxicity claim. In competitions like athletics, there is always a sense of bravado and boasting between all of the competitors. This is often masked as friendliness, but is never actually meant as such. And I know this because I've done it plenty of times myself. There's always someone who thinks they're the strongest or the fastest, and they'll make this very, very clear. But parkour competitions are different. Yes, there is that competitive spirit because it is, well, a competition, but there's also a community feel as well, even at the highest of levels. And this is usually because in the parkour community, everyone knows everyone, or at least has seen them on social media. And if you're unknown to them, then you get welcomed with open arms into the parkour family. So competitors will all train together and hang out together and all have the same conclusion as, yeah, this is a competition, but it's also about community, and it's not the end of the world if I don't win. This is backed up by the fact there is usually a community aspect to the event as a whole. For example, at Project Underground, there is plenty of time for people to train together of all ages, of all abilities, in between the actual competitive sections. And then at other competitions, numerous ones around the world, there is usually a jam or some workshops, or again, just some standard training either before, after, or halfway through the competition. This helps take the competitive edge off of the event a little bit and truly helps focus on one of parkour's key benefits, which is community. A second argument for parkour competitions is that there is something to everyone because competitions have a lot of variations to them. The main three are speed, skill, and style. However, these have a lot of offshoots. For speed competitions, you have the bog standard start point, end point, waypoints, and the winner is the person who can complete the course the fastest. But an offshoot of the speed competitions is technically chase tag, which is essentially professional parkour tag or it. Skill competitions can be done in three main ways. The first one is the round skill competitions, where there are multiple rounds. As the rounds progress, the number of challenges gets less, the difficulty of those challenges increases, and the time limit in which you have to complete those challenges becomes less. Eventually you'll end up in the final round with the top competitors, the hardest challenges, and a very, very small time limit to complete those said challenges. Next are takeover events. This is where there are a number of challenges spread out across the city, and competitors have a very big time limit to complete as many of those challenges as they can. For example, there are 100 challenges, complete as many of them as you can in 8 hours. A third type of skill competition is what I'm calling multi-level challenge competitions, which is a bit of a big name, I understand. This is the structure used at the most recent Glasgow parkour competitions in August and October. This is where there are a small number of challenges. However, each of those challenges has 3 levels. So for example, level 1 is a standing pre, level 2 is a 360 pre, and level 3 is a standing side flip pre. Same area, just slightly different difficulties of the same challenge. If you complete level 1, you get 1 point. If you complete level 2, you get 2 points. And if you complete level 3, you get 3 points. However, unlike the first 2 variants, for this competition style, you move around as one big group. You don't move around by yourself or in little groups. Style competitions are pretty much all the same. It's just the judging criteria which are different. The aim of style competitions is to create the most fluent, beautiful, and tricky lines that you can, and the judging criteria can vary, with options being flow, difficulty, execution, versatility, creativity, and overall impression. Because of this variety in competition style, there is so much to choose from, and anyone can take part. The increase in popularity and getting people to travel more is the third point on this list. In the early days of parkour, jams were the big thing. They would be held every weekend, and people would travel all over the country to simply go and train with other people and in new locations. But nowadays, jams are unfortunately pretty much dead. They still go on, but people don't travel as far from them, they're not as widely attended, unless they have some form of unique or competitive aspect to them. I'm not saying jams are bad things, because they're not. I love them. I wish that they still had the impact they did, but they don't. However, as demonstrated at numerous competitions in the last couple of years, people will travel great distances to compete, whether they're in for a chance of winning or not. And unfortunately, if you aren't willing to adapt your mindset on competitions and try and host some in your local town or city, and you only host small jams, then your community won't grow as quickly and people won't visit you as much. The final point on this list is not to do with competitions specifically, it's more to do with classes. In most sports clubs, there is the expectancy to compete. Many of them will allow you to join just for yourself, but the majority of them are built on the structure of join, compete, win, and stay. But with parkour, unless it's a competition-specific squad, there are not many, if any, coaches that will force their students to compete straight from the off. As stated earlier in the against section, parkour is built around the notion of training for yourself. moving in your own unique way, completing your own personal challenges. And this is still the core focus of the majority of parkour classes. So where do you stand with parkour competitions? Do you oppose them or support them? What I find quite interesting is the fact that the majority of people who oppose parkour competitions have never actually been to one. And if they have, then they've not gone into it with an open mind. They base their opinion off of past unrelated experiences, or simply have gone along with something that a coach or a friend has told them. And when I talk about accepting or supporting competitions, I don't mean you have to compete at them. I mean just accepting that people enjoy them and they are becoming a vital part of today's parkour world. And hey, if you're against them or you've got concerns about ones that's happening in your local area, then that's completely fine. You're free to have your own opinions. However, if you are genuinely concerned, contact the organizers, contact the hosts, express your worries, show them your side, and maybe they'll help you understand their side as well. Don't go on a tangent or complain to someone irrelevant, because there's no point trying to divide a community if someone is trying to build it back up. Thank you very much for watching this video on why parkour competitions actually work. Feel free to leave your views in the comments down below, but just know I'm not going to get into any arguments. I can't be bothered. Make sure you check out my next documentary where I'll be talking about the great fallout of 2014. And if that isn't enough to get you to watch it, then I don't know what will. See you around.